Hello and welcome back to Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. Today I thought I would just make a quick video running you through the base I've been working on in Durin's Forge, going through a couple of advanced base building techniques and a few tips that I hope you can implement in your own bases. I will say this video is not necessarily aimed towards beginners, it's more towards advanced players that are looking to sort of flesh out their bases. So the assumption is that you already know how to use the basic base building system to put down sort of floors, walls, roofs and basic furnishings. But I think even if you are a newer player, there's definitely going to be some tips in this that will help you make some really nice bases even if you're just starting out, so do stick around. Quick disclaimer, if there's any elements in this build guide that you don't have unlocked, it will just be down to your story progression, so I would recommend you finish the story first before investing too much time in a base, because the last thing you want to do is have to rebuild the whole thing when you've unlocked all of the components. Location wise, we're in Durin's Forge, so this is in Dwaradelf. It's one of the later areas of the game, and personally I would say this is probably one of the best locations to base. Just look at the amount of space and room you get here, both vertically and horizontally. It's just a great place, and there's so many existing features everywhere to build around and to play around with. I would say if you're a bit earlier on in the game, I think the Elven Quarter is probably a close second. That's also a really nice area with lots of really nice open space. So if you're looking to build a bit of an earlier base, I would definitely choose that to get started. So I'm going to stop blue balling you now, we're going to get cracking. I'm just going to give you a run through of the base, and then as we go through, give you a few of the techniques that I've kind of used along the way and a few tips as we go along. So heading down the main stairs here, we've got our sort of main entrance area. There's nothing too crazy going on here. There's a couple of details worth talking about though. These pillar bases with the salt lamps on top I think are a really nice feature. Obviously in this case the salt lamps are not actually functional, but I do think they look really nice and those pieces just go really well together. And the other thing worth talking about is this big archway here. So a lot of the natural blocks in the game tend to be quite square, so one of the biggest challenges I think is finding out ways to overcome that and to build around it to add some more kind of shape and angle to your structures. One of the best ways I've found to do this is using as much timber as humanly possible. So I really think the more wooden blocks you add, the more alive and the more detailed your base is going to look. So this archway is actually pretty simple. It's mainly started with these two large archway blocks. So it will be two of these either side, with a connector in the middle, and then just fleshed out with these wooden sections in the center. So all these are the ornate crown pieces. So if you're going to wooden stone, scroll down, ornate crown, there we go. And it's just two of these stacked on top of each other like that on either side, with an ornate railing connecting them, and then just railings to fill out the edges around. And then a similar thing on top as well. I think these are called short banister pieces, with another banister just in the middle to add a bit of detail, and it just gives the whole structure a lot more curvature. It just makes it look a lot nicer, less just like a kind of square box. So as we head on through, you can see this is sort of the Elven Garden area, I guess. You can see this whole archway looks really nice from the other side as well. Loads of texture and loads of detail. But yeah, as we come into the garden, you've got your planters, your elven blessings, some statues, and then this nice framing in the background as well. This is similar to what we talked about over there. It's just a couple of railings stacked on top of each other with a crown on top, and then another railing on top of that, with then the short banisters just connecting these archways over the top. Just looks really nice. Looks like kind of a nice natural organic garden area, and then you've got these nice statues in the background as well, which the timber frames really nicely. So yeah, elven blessings, planters. If you're putting down planters, I would really recommend mixing up your plants a little bit. Just makes it look a lot more natural rather than just planting the same thing over and over again. So we've got a variety of different things here. We've got you know, parsnips, we've got white beans, we've got cabbage, we've got all sorts of onions. So yeah, mix it up a little bit, makes it look a little bit nicer. This railing is actually just the crown pieces as well. So these are just the carved wood crowns, just stacked next to each other, and I think it gives a really nice effect. It's a little bit more chunky than the regular railing, but also lets you look through it a little bit, which I think is nice in this context. So we're going to carry on through here. Got another nice wood archway. It's a similar technique here, just two big wood posts, the ornate crowns, and then the short railings stacked together to form this really nice peak. This can be used in sort of doorways, archways, like anywhere where you need a little bit of this shape going on. So as we come through into the main area, this is sort of the main base over to the left here. I will say this right area still needs a little bit of love, but we have got a nice little half kind of camping area here. We just lost our torch, that's fine. You can see it's kind of sunk into the floor, which leads us on to one of the main techniques I would talk about for building, which is just messing around with the floor levels and using a lot of stairs. I think it adds a really interesting element. You can see it's incorporated in this entranceway as well. So some areas around this base are the original floor level. So around this forge, for example, this was all already here. Obviously you've got Durin's forge and then the massive smelter in the background, which is a nice sort of feature piece to build around. But this whole floor with these grates and pipes and stuff is all original. And then you can see I've just built out the floor level around it to kind of raise it up a little bit with these stairs. And it gives you the opportunity to, where you want to, just drop it back down again. I've just added some of these kind of cobble stone tiles at the bottom to switch it up a little bit. It's the same thing over here. So yeah, really useful to just use the elevation to your advantage and make these cool little areas. Which kind of leads on to another thing worth talking about, which is this floor. Some might consider this a glitch, some might not, but essentially all of these tiles are just stone foundations, which, if you know the building system in this game, they are not actual floors. So the way this works is every time you put down a standard floor piece like this, if it is not directly in contact with the floor down there, it's going to build itself a foundation underneath it. So you can see this costs 9 euros granite to put down. You can see it's a different level, and that's because all I've done is build these stone floors all around the entire area and then just remove the actual floor like that. And you can see you still end up with a walkable surface, but you get your 9 granite back. So this entire surface cost me absolutely nothing other than a bit of time building it. So you might consider it an exploit, but I think it's a really good way of kind of conserving your resources and being a little bit more efficient with your building. So yeah, just putting down floor tiles and then removing the top tile leaves you with a free walkable surface to kind of change the level of the floor. So yeah, as we come through, I'm going to show you this back bit. This is, I think of this as sort of the construction site of the base build. So I haven't really worked on this. This is just resource storage, dumping materials, loads of stockpiles. We've got your ingots, stone, all sorts of stuff, and then loads of chests over here. So this area is still needing some work, but I've got some ideas for things I want to build here in the future. So as you come down into the main forge area, obviously you've got everything you need for your smelting, all of these big elements, and then the smaller sections around with sort of bellows and forges and smelters and everything you might need. And then round here is the sort of main structure. So you can see on the outside using a lot of the same kind of timber elements, using the crowns and the banisters to add a little bit of angle, as well as these nice archways. I think just really adds a really good bit of detail to the base. I've also added this kind of extended upper section using the ornate ceiling tiles, which help to give it a bit more of a three-dimensional effect rather than it just being kind of a square box. So yeah, I'm going to head inside here. As you can see, this is sort of the kitchen slash hangout area, I suppose. So first thing as we come in, we've got the kitchen over here. You can see some oats being milled up, ovens baking some pasties, all sorts of tasty goodies, making me kind of hungry, you know. Thankfully, we've already got a meal waiting for us on the table. Nice healthy fruit salad. I'm going to munch that down. There we go. So yeah, there's not really much crazy stuff to talk about in here. There's a little bit of stacking going on. So we've got the bar counter here with the bar case on top of it. And that's one thing we'll touch on a little bit later on, is just adding a bit of verticality to your building and keeping things interesting. One thing I do really like about this kitchen, there's these shelves on the wall, which I think look really nice. You can place pots and different bits on there as well, just add a little bit of interest to the background. And then also these railing pieces here, I've kind of arranged them to look like bar gates, so it almost looks like it would open and close in order to kind of segregate this kitchen area a little bit from the main living space. Obviously they don't move, but you know, you can use your imagination. And then coming round here, we've got a sort of little reading nook, a big bookshelf with some chests on top of it, and a nice little reading table. These chests, they're just stacked on top of 1 by 1 floor tiles. So these floor tiles you can just place onto the wall, and then you can sit anything you want on top of them. And this leads me on to the element of kind of verticality. So a lot of people's bases, you'll see, if you kind of look around at dwarf height like this, everything looks really nice and really detailed. But as soon as you look up, all of the walls are completely blank and there's nothing sort of towards the top of the base. So that's one of the reasons why I made these nice timber frames on the inside, just to add a little bit more interest to the upper sections. So you can see this is just a couple of timber posts with these ornate crowns and then some beams across the top. I think it really fleshes out the kind of the top section of this room. Same thing here as well, sort of banners up the wall, chests nice and high up. It's the same thing here as well. There's just a bar case sat on top of a scroll shelf, and this is again sat on top of a wooden floor tile that I've managed to hide inside it. So just bringing the building nice and far up the walls so that it's not just kind of floor level. It's interesting. Another really nice element is these bedrolls. I think they look really nice in front of fires like this. It almost looks like the kind of place like a dog might nestle up to have a nap after going for a walk. They've got a little bit more kind of texture and dimension than these flat mats, so I think that's a really nice little feature. Also coming around into this corner, we've got scroll shelves, nice little treasure hoard, and another thing worth talking about, which is this box. You might be wondering what this is. You might be looking through your build menu and saying, I can't find this anywhere. What this actually is just an armor piece. So these are arable plank gauntlets, and we can pick these up. And basically, when you drop armor pieces in this game, say these gauntlets for example, they will spawn as this wooden box. So obviously if you place it incorrectly, you get this little white trail that's telling you can pick it up, which doesn't necessarily look that great. But when you go into your menu, this will actually drop wherever your cursor happens to be sitting. So if I put my cursor over here, you can see it drops off to that side. And what you can do is basically just play around with it a little bit. You can see that time it's fallen with the white streak underneath it. So actually, from a distance here, it just looks like another set piece. And I think it's a really nice way of adding a little bit of dimension. You can also rotate it in ways that you can't rotate the other set pieces. It does sometimes take a little bit of time to get it to fall correctly, so you can see as I put it back here, it might take me a couple of goes. Oh no, first try, there we go. Sometimes if the white trail's up, you just got to pick it up again and play around with it, but I think popping these down in corners and around places where you think people might be storing things is a really nice feature and just fleshes out the place a lot. So I think that's pretty much all we got to talk about for this area, so we're going to carry on through into the brewing area. So as we go out this door here, can see we've got our 2 brew tanks over to the side. You can see there's some more elements in the front to kind of flesh it out a little bit. We've got some smaller brew tanks, some stills, some pots, a chest, various different things. And same thing with the timber framing as well, just to add a little bit more detail. One thing worth talking about with your base building is kind of dimension. So you can see when you look at this area here, when you look around, there's lots of detail in the foreground, but there's also things in the background. So as you look past this tank, there's this gold upright piece here. There's a treasure pile in the back. There's some pots. There's some elven wood storage. And adding a bit more depth to your base, I think really helps it come to life. If all you're focusing on is just the foreground, it'll look really nice from certain angles, but as you're walking through it, you're not going to get this kind of effect of interest throughout the entire scene. So I'd really encourage you popping some elements in the background as well, just to flesh it out. So yeah, as we come around, we've got a nice staircase to access the top of the tanks. Obviously these tanks do have ladders on the side to climb up, but I do think it just looks so much nicer if you've got a little walkway you can get to the top of the tanks with. It just creates a really nice effect then. Next up we've got our king tank. Now I really only have enough space for one of these because they are absolutely massive. But as you can see, I've kind of built its own little area around here. So we've got some nice little oats growing in these farm patches, ready for brewing. And then loads and loads of these pots lying around. So I like to think these are being used for transporting the beer. Hence why we've just got loads of them sitting next to the brew tank. There's also this understairs cupboard where you can see you've kind of used the pots and various different elements as well. I like this because it kind of looks really nice and natural. It seems like the kind of place where people would just kind of throw stuff to store it and get it out of the way. Same thing with this bedroll. We've used the same crate technique again, so this is just a miner's helmet sitting here, and a little bit of a gold pile. So stacking things into corners and into places where you think people might kind of just throw things to store them makes your base really come to life and just look a lot more lived in. So yeah, let's carry on. We're going to head up the main staircase here. You can see, same as with the little brew tanks, we've also got an access walkway here, so we can get to the top of the tank for all of our brewing needs. And then as we come around here through this lovely gilded door, this is going to be the main bedroom. Now this does need a little bit of fleshing out. I did have this nicely built, but realised I didn't quite have enough space, which is why I've extended this section over here where you saw the overhang from the outside. So it does need a little bit more love, but it's already looking quite nice again. You can see we've got all of our crafting materials and stuff, all of our workbenches, rune table up on this little pedestal, and then a nice raised bed area with this gold accent in the background and a nice treasure stash in the front. I'm just going to admire this quickly. The only thing really worth talking about here, we've obviously got a balcony going out to the outside, which I think looks really nice. Lets you kind of look out over the entire base. There's also this custom hearth here, so as you can see, this isn't actually one of the hearths that you can get pre-built in game. What this is just a small hearth with a banister around it, and then all I've done is just use these stone blocks, small stone blocks, to manually build out this hearth shape around it. And what that's done is just added something kind of really organic and natural looking with all of these little corners and shapes, which I just think looks a lot more convincing than some of the pre-built hearths you can get in the game. One other thing you'll notice is these random goat's heads hanging on the wall. You might be asking, what on earth is that? I've not seen that piece before. So this is another little handy trick you can use. If you go all the way down to the bottom of furnishings and have a look at the trade signs, one useful trick with these is they don't lock onto walls and they don't clip onto walls when you try and place them. So as you are locating this, you can actually phase it in and out the wall however you want. And you can use these pieces really effectively to create these almost like little gargoyles like you'd see on the side of an old house, to place some extra details around the place. So you can just locate it. If you kind of step to the side like this, it's the easiest, and you can just move it carefully in and out of the wall and then place it wherever you want it, and it adds these cool little gold accents all around the place, which I think really make it pop. So last bit of the tour now, we're going to run around to the top and have a look. So we're going to climb up this rope ladder. You can see here we've got our sort of roof deck area, another little camping section, camp hearth, and then this cool kind of castle effect, but with some banisters to kind of warm it up a little bit so it doesn't look too angry and aggressive. And then we've got our cool little hangout area up here, nice little gazebo. Truth be told, the only reason this is here is because that gold accent tile behind the bed was sticking up through the roof here, and I needed to find a way of hiding it, but I think this actually came out quite nicely. To get this cool roof effect, I've basically just used a couple of really short wooden stairs on the sides, and then on top I've stacked these inner or outer corner pieces. I'll see if I can find them. They should be under granite if you scroll all the way down. Corner stairs, and all you do is just stack these facing in towards each other like this. You can create a really cool peak, and it kind of it mirrors what a natural roof would look like. So if you need to add a little bit of angle to the top of any structures, that's a really good way of doing it. So yeah, let's head back round. As we run back round to the front, just going to have a look at these railings. That's another handy feature, just adding small accents onto the existing structures. Just really helps it pop. Apologies, it's just gone really dark here. But yeah, even just small details like this make a big difference. It makes it feel a little bit more lived in. And yeah, I'd highly recommend just playing around with the building tiles, adding them onto the existing environment, and seeing what you can come up with. So yeah, there's one more thing worth talking about, which is resources. I should say this entire base has just been built by me. I've manually mined all of the resources for this, but there is ways of getting around that. So if all you're interested in is just creative base building, there is a technique basically called save copying. So all of the files in this world are saved as manual save files. So what you can do is go and do a bit of mining, put it in a crate, and then exit the game. Copy over and copy and paste that save file multiple times, and then use your character to run into those saves and pick up those copied resources to bring them back into your main world. So if all you're interested in is just getting creative and building as much as possible without any of the grind and any of the mining, that's a really good way to go about it. This isn't going to be a detailed guide on that. There's plenty of threads on Reddit or videos on how to do that, so just Google it if you're interested. As far as manual resource mining goes, one really useful tip is the enchantments. So if you build yourself a two-handed battle axe and you go to your enchanting table, once you get a little bit later in the game, one of the enchantments you will unlock is an enchantment that allows you to collect ironwood from trees that you chop down. So my best recommendation, because I do find that the most common resource to run out of does tend to be the wood when you're using it this much in your base building, get yourself a two-handed battle axe and enchant it with that ironwood enchantment, and then all you need to do is just run through the deeps area of the game and just farm all of the mushrooms growing down there. And by doing that, you're going to collect both normal wood, abusan wood, and ironwood at the same time. And that's definitely the most efficient way of just getting a load of timber ready for base building. And all you've really got to do is clear out the deeps once or twice, and you should have enough for a sort of base this size. So it's not really too much work, but that's a really handy tip for just getting resources a little bit faster. One more thing I will talk about is snapping. So one of the most frustrating elements of the base building in this game is going to be trying to get things to snap correctly. So a lot of the times when you're trying to place elements, there's going to be specific areas that they want to be, and that might not be exactly where you need them. So one thing that I've noticed, other than just spending time kind of playing around, you can also hit tilde under your escape key to change the camera angle, which can help with snapping sometimes, and obviously using the scroll wheel and scroll control to change the distance and the height of objects. One useful tip though, if you're trying to get things to snap into just the right place, is building something next to it expressly for the purpose of snapping that object to it. So if we use this as an example, if we remove this granite wall here, obviously I've built around this existing pillar and this statue here. So if you were to select a standard granite wall and try and phase it into this pillar, you can see it doesn't really want to clip inside it. But in this case, because this archway is already in place, you can see this archway framing the door, what that's going to do is allow this wall piece to hopefully clip onto the side of that archway. So you do need to play around with it sometimes. It can take a little bit of time, but just be patient. There we go. We're getting there. Take your time, change the angle of where you're standing, and just play around with the placement. You can also use your scroll wheel to kind of move it around and flick around the place. So you can see we're getting closer now. There we go. And in we go. So you can see that kind of completes that wall really nicely. And if this archway piece wasn't here, there's no way you could get that piece to sit where it does. But because it is, it will allow you to clip it into this pillar. And the same thing sometimes goes for floors, ceilings, and anything you're building around. So if something's just not quite sitting right, consider building another piece next to it for the express purpose of snapping to it. And then you can just delete that piece afterwards, which I think is a really good way to go. I think that pretty much wraps us up. Thank you for watching. If you've got any questions regarding the base build or any of the building techniques I mentioned, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I do read all of them. I'd be happy to help. And also just, yeah, upload your bases. I'm keen to see them. I think this base building system has so much potential, especially with all of these timber pieces included. So I'd love to see what you managed to come up with, and hopefully some of the tips you've seen today will help you get a little bit more creative in your own base building journey. So yeah, as always, thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.